Hello, James, and nice to meet you virtually. This will be some video feedback for you. I'll cover the wireframes of this week and also address 3.3 and 3.2. I'll be working backwards because I think the coding exercise and the wireframes are probably the most general interest, and I'll share this with the class as my contribution to this week's discussion board. James, thanks for embedding the image in your post. And I see that you're favoring wireframe 1. Don't discount these. What I like about them is that they're very adaptable and they seem to be able to stretch laterally for whatever platform they're displayed on. So in other words, on a portable device like a phone, they will adapt well. I think the way that you've bled left and right is good too. This one, it has a sort of an asymmetrical feeling to it, which is good, inviting simplistic vibe. I would agree with that. Here the logo, I imagine, make sure that it's vector graphic, SVG. That way it can float over anything, a background photograph, it'll do well, and it'll be on a transparent background. So check out SVG file format. That's the one you want to be using. I see here you have your navigation down at the bottom. That's okay if you can get all of this in a single screen. You certainly don't want to have this viewer scroll to the bottom of the page to navigate throughout the site. And so I know it seems dull and maybe unimaginative, but consider putting your navigation up at the top, the first thing that the viewer sees. You don't want it to be obtrusive, but you want to give the viewer a way out of the page. You don't want to trap them within the page. Nice sketches. I like the color coding. You might consider, making a total presentation with sample pages and wireframes using the corporate palette for your client. So here they are large again, and I like that you have used this left and right bleed to make a cleaner page. James, this looks great for week 4. This is good. This is what I'm assuming I'm looking at. Just a couple of things here. If you look at your URL, I noticed that you're using word spaces. So I imagine this probably was meant to be a hyphen. See how the word spaces comes out as a % sign? That can cause trouble. So avoid using word spaces both in your directory names as well as your file names. I see a lot of good formatting here. I see that you've used, looks like CSS to give this beaded border. And it also looks like you're using the corporate colors and you have applied some styling. When I look at your code here, and I'm looking at it in Chrome on the Macintosh. I had to think for a second there. Let me zoom in. Here is your page code. I wanted to point out a few things that might have caused you some concern. You'll notice here that in the head there is this mysterious script. It's a JavaScript, and it is placed there dynamically by GeoCities, and that makes your page visible to search engines. And so really it's called host code. And here's another bit of host code that is placed on your page dynamically. Just ignore it, although, at first it occupies a lot of space on your coded web pages, but it's just something, nothing is for free, right? So GeoCities had to place that there. I see that you have you've designated or defined your H1 style. Maybe the next step would be to designate the typeface, which I believe for Pasta Amore is Gaudi Old Style. Let's see what you can do. You've gotten the trip hex numbers for the color on your type, and you even have a background color. Now, I'm wondering how you got that nifty dotted border around your headline there. Oh, I see, border style. Here we go, dotted border. Yes, that's all part of inline styling. So the next step would also be to separate this styling into its own cascading style sheet, external sheet. And that way, you don't have to repeat this on every page, and you can go to the external style sheet, make a few edits, styling edits, and it will echo or cascade down through all of your pages without you having to change the code on every single page. Hope that makes sense. Some nice commenting here, some simple commenting, and you've been able to upload it. Good going. James, I enjoy your visual sitemap. It looks like you're going to have 2 levels to your site. You're going to have this, the home page or index.html exist at the same level as your other options, which are menu, about, contact. So yeah, that's it's going to be a 4-page presence. I think that's manageable. Or and the menu, you've broken it up under. Let me zoom in here. You've broken it into specials, appetizers, lunch, and dinner. This may be a little ambitious. I appreciate, though, that your enthusiasm to do it. There are 2 ways of doing a menu in this class, and one of them is to use the menu that you produced in the publication design class for the same client. If you took that, now I realize that not everybody has the same prerequisites, having come from different places. The other way, of course, just embedding a PDF of that pre-existing menu that you had designed, if you had taken that class. The other way, of course, is to format in HTML and CSS a menu. That's very ambitious, but the advantage of that, of course, is that it's easy to edit and realistic too. It can be printed out to be posted, say, on a refrigerator. And also would give you experience, further experience in formatting typography using HTML and soon CSS. Now, I see here in your screenshots that you've got a folder for images, a folder for media. Curious to know what you're keeping in those. I'm assuming that the child pages. And then here's your GeoCities file structure. I see 2 that you've got exactly the same thing. So you've got a folder for images, a folder for or directory for media, and you have your index.html. That's great. Exemplary. James, I went here because one of the things that the criteria in the rubric is just a 2-item criteria is ask for a coded sitemap, and so I went up here. This is, and I see that you've got a list of everything. A list of images. It looks like. I'm assuming that you are going to organize it into individual folders. I think you're on the right track, but I'm just a tad confused. Let me see what this looks like. Okay, great. So I would expect to find, let me see if you've got anything for week 4. Okay, yes, you have the beginnings of an unordered list. Let me look at the, so I'm going to take a look at week 4 stuff. Know that for week 3 criteria, you didn't quite get it, but here I see that wonderful unordered list, which is becoming your navigation. So really simply done. And I see a more advanced CSS. In this case, it's embedded, or you have your styling embedded still. So the next leap for you is to extract all of this and put it in an external style sheet. So good going. Glad to see this. Glad that you've been able to upload everything. I'm glad to see that your file management structure on your PC matches that on the web server. And I see that, and I'm also really glad to see that you had the beginnings of a navigation system. Good going, James.